All right, so we're diving deep into CrossFit today.
Specifically, this level 1 training guide you sent over. I gotta say, I'm pretty curious. When you hear fitness, what pops into your head?
Like, what's the first image that comes to mind? Because CrossFit, they've got some, well, let's just say they have some interesting ideas about fitness.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong there. They definitely like to shake things up.
Right.
Right off the bat, they hit you with this line, our specialty is not specializing.
Yeah, that one jumped out at me too. Specialty is not specializing. It's catchy, but what does it actually mean in practice?
Like, how do they define fitness differently?
Okay, so they break it down into three, models of fitness.
Okay.
The first one, it's all about being well-rounded,
I like the sound of that already.
Strength, endurance, flexibility, speed, agility, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
It's not just about being like a runner or a weightlifter. It's about being ready for anything.
Sounds kind of intense, right?
It can be.
So that's model 1. What about the other 2? What are they all about?
The second one is interesting. It's like, imagine a fitness test, but the exercises are constantly changing. You never know what's coming next.
Okay.
And the idea is that the fittest person is the one who can excel even when they're thrown a curveball, something outside their normal routine. CrossFit argues this is actually more like real life, with its unexpected physical challenges.
I see what they're getting at. It's easy to get stuck in our routine.
Okay.
All right, so unpredictable workouts. What's model number 3?
This one gets a bit more technical. It's about the different ways our bodies create energy during exercise. Like sprinting uses a different energy system than long distance running, right?
Right.
So CrossFit is all about training in ways that optimize all of those systems.
So it's not just about how much you can lift or run. It's about how adaptable your body is.
Exactly.
Got it. So how does that actually play out, like on a practical level?
They give this great example in the guide. Imagine a marathon runner trying to do a box jump.
Oh.
They might have incredible endurance,
Right.
but that explosive full body movement could be a struggle.
Oh, I can totally relate to that. Box jumps. Humbling.
Right. And that highlights the problem with specializing too much. You might be amazing at one thing, but how often in our daily lives do we only need that one thing? We're lifting groceries, sprinting to catch the bus, playing with our kids.
So true. Never thought about it like that.
It's all over the map.
You're totally right. So it seems like CrossFit is going for this really adaptable, holistic approach to fitness. But how do they actually build that? What are the key principles they use?
Okay, so we're talking about this well-rounded, adaptable fitness, right? But then the guide mentions this whole neuroendocrine adaptation thing.
And I'll admit, that one threw me for a second. What is that exactly?
It sounds complicated, but it's really not too bad. It's basically how our bodies react to different exercises, but like on a hormonal level.
Okay.
So when you really challenge your body in specific ways, you trigger the release of certain hormones. Testosterone, growth hormone, that kind of stuff.
And those are key for like building strength and muscle, right?
Exactly. They're the signals telling your body, hey, we need to adapt here. We need to get stronger.
Gotcha.
But here's the thing. The guide argues that not every exercise triggers those hormones in the same way.
So some exercises are better at triggering this hormonal response than others.
Exactly. Like you can do bicep curls all day long.
Right.
And yeah, your biceps might get a good pump going, but
Sure.
that kind of isolated exercise, it's not going to trigger that same hormonal cascade as something like, say, a squat or a deadlift.
Interesting. Because those compound movements, they work a bunch of muscle groups at the same time, right?
Exactly. It's like sending this huge signal to your system. You're basically telling your body, all right, time for a major upgrade. And that's where you see the big changes. More strength, more power, better overall fitness.
So those isolated exercises still have their place, but it sounds like compound movements are where the magic really happens in CrossFit.
You got it.
And speaking of compound movements, the guide dives deep on one in particular, the squat. There's a whole section dedicated to it. What's the deal with the squat? Why is it so important?
Well, the squat is fundamental in CrossFit. It's a really primal movement. Think about it. We squat to pick stuff up. We squat to sit down. I mean, our ancestors were probably squatting all day long.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
It's ingrained in us.
Okay, I get that it's a natural movement and all, but I gotta say, I've always been a little scared of squats. You hear those stories about them being rough on your knees and...
Yeah, it's a common worry. But honestly, when you do a squat correctly, it's actually really good for your knees.
Okay.
The key is proper form, proper technique. And that's something CrossFit really emphasizes.
So it's all about quality over quantity. Like, don't just load up the weight, make sure you're doing it right.
Absolutely. The guide actually has the saying, mechanics, consistency, then intensity.
Okay, I like that.
You focus on good form first, you're consistent with your training,
Right.
and then once you've got that down, you start cranking up the intensity.
That makes sense. It's like they're saying, don't just go through the motions, really understand what you're doing and why,
Yeah, exactly.
and do it right.
And it's about building that strong foundation so you can handle whatever life throws at you.
Exactly, exactly. And speaking of pushing limits, there's that section in the guide about the potential risks, right? Like rhabdomyolysis was a new one for me.
It sounds kind of serious. What is that, and how can people stay safe?
Rhabdomyolysis, yeah, it's definitely something to be aware of. But honestly, it's pretty rare, especially if you're training smart. Basically what happens is your muscle tissue breaks down too quickly,
Okay.
and that releases stuff into your bloodstream that can cause problems. It usually happens when people overdo it,
Yeah.
especially if they're just starting out or haven't been active in a while.
So easing back into things is key,
Absolutely.
especially with this kind of high-intensity training, right?
And that's where the whole CrossFit thing about scaling comes in.
Okay.
They really emphasize that workouts can be adjusted to your fitness level. You can still get a great workout without pushing yourself to the point of injury.
That's good to hear, because I'll be honest, CrossFit has a bit of a reputation,
For being really intense.
Yeah, you hear stories.
Yeah,
It's definitely intense, but it's not about going all out all the time. It's about finding that sweet spot, challenging yourself, but doing it in a sustainable way.
right, right. And it's not just about the workouts, right? There's that whole nutrition component too.
Yeah.
The guide talks about the zone diet, which, full disclosure, I haven't thought about in years.
What's the connection there between diet and CrossFit?
It's all connected. CrossFit takes nutrition seriously. They see it as essential for performance and recovery. And the zone diet, it's all about balance. Protein, carbs, fats, making sure you're getting the right amounts at the right times.
Right, right. I remember it involved weighing your food and stuff, which always felt a little, I don't know.
A little intense.
Yeah, a little intense, but I guess when you're talking about optimizing everything, every detail matters, right?
Exactly. The zone diet is designed to keep your blood sugar stable, keep those hormones balanced, so you have consistent energy and your body composition is on point.
Makes sense. It's about fueling your body properly for those intense workouts and all the adaptations we've been talking about.
Exactly. It's all connected.
This has been super interesting. We've covered so much ground today, from redefining fitness to those hormonal responses, mastering the squat.
Even fueling it all up with the right nutrition. CrossFit is clearly so much more than just lifting weights.
Oh, for sure. It's a whole approach to fitness.
It's about pushing your limits, but doing it safely, smartly.
Unlocking your potential in the gym and out.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the world of CrossFit. Hopefully you all learned something new, whether you're already into fitness or just starting out.
Absolutely.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing those limits.
All right. Keep pushing.
And keep diving deep.